world. I'm Chris Perillo on behalf of the New Stack. Welcome in to a wonderful webinar, whether you are watching live, which we hope you are, or you're watching after it's live, because if you're watching live, by the way, it'll be available on demand afterwards. And today, we're going to be discussing why your developers hate your DevOps stack. You may know this, you may not know this, but the good news is we're going to plan on fixing it. We're going to show you how to fix it. And today I'm joined by Eric Minnick, DevOps enthusiast, which I love that title, by the way, just any kind of enthusiast at Harness, and Dewan Ahmed, principal developer advocate at Harness, which it's a good title. Don't get me wrong. I mean, principal developer advocate, very solid, not quite enthusiast, but maybe you are an enthusiast in different ways.
I'll try to make up for that during the webinar by showing the enthusiasm.
Good. Okay. I do have to ask though, Eric, that title, like it's relatively unique.
You know, you can put what you want on your business card.
I've done the same. I put like Jedi and no one really questions it. So I'm good there.
No, we talk about what's important with DevOps and how to make it awesome.
And you've got quite a few insights to share with us today. Quite a few. So let's go ahead and dive into that, because we've got a lot of good visuals to cover, and we're gonna fix things. And I love fixing things.
Yeah, no, it's important to understand why they're broken in order to talk about how to fix them. So we'll spend some time down in the mud, and then we'll spend some time up getting out of it too. But yeah, let's start down in the mud. And I want to set a scene of frustration, maybe a bad day. And think about a Friday afternoon, and we got some lead developer at a bank, and maybe waiting for markets to close in order to do their big release, right? And that time comes, and they push the release out, they hit all the buttons, and something fails, right? It's like, oh man, all right. Dewan, how's that going to play out?
Yeah, I'll try to be as enthusiastic as possible, but this is a sad story. So pardon me, Chris, it'll be difficult to show the enthusiasm. So this is where it all unravels, right? So they're checking the logs. The logs are there, but the logs are incomplete. The logs telling the engineer that something is broken, but not exactly where. So times go by. Remember, it's a Friday evening, so hours go by. They're trying to dig through the log, and they do find out that the deployment pipeline can't access the Artifactory. The token expired 2 days ago. So now, of course, rather than doing software delivery, they're back to ticket. They raise a ticket, and then hopefully someone updates the secret, because they don't have access to update the secret themselves. They go home. They're missing family dinner. They're trying to escalate to the platform team, and then just hope someone looks at the ticket and then updates the secret. The difficult part is they can't roll back, because it's a manual rollback. It's not an automated rollback, so they can't move forward. They can't move back, and this is something that is not very uncommon. So 2 days go by. Monday morning, guess who's getting the blame? Our lead developer, although it's not their fault.
I do believe, isn't it a thing where you're never supposed to push to production on Friday?
Yeah, Chris, you're absolutely right. This is similar to how hard that change can be. It's just a button, changing the color of a button on the UI. Have you seen that? Like changing the button of a UI that makes an API call. So the team has worked on it for so long, and we need to get this feature out by Tuesday. Just one hot fix. Let's say Wednesday. Okay, by Thursday for sure we're gonna get it in. All right, Friday we're already just push it in. Everything we tested locally. Remember, it works on my machine, so nothing's gonna happen. Just push it to production.
Yeah, but we still see this, particularly in financial services, where they're like, okay, let's not touch it while the markets are open, or something like that. So it's going to be over the weekend. And I don't know, if I got the choice between Friday at 6 o'clock or Saturday morning, I'm going to pick Friday. But yeah, and that all gets back to software that maybe we can't trust our updates on, which which is a whole nother conversation. So yeah, not really ideal. So I think this is the kind of stuff where we want to tackle these sorts of situations. So now that we've kind of lived through this kind of traumatic situation, I think that kind of sets us up a little bit. Let's talk about where we're going. Duan?
Yeah. So we'll call it by what it is. DevOps developer experience is broken, and not in just some abstract way. It's broken in a really painful, concrete kind of way. And that's why we call it this is broken.
Yeah. And so then we'll talk about why it's broken, what the sources of that are, what the conflicts within the organization are. And, we're not just going to say this tool's bad or something, but often kind of the glue between the tools is what we're going to look at.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And after that, we'll paint a picture of, what good could look like. Well, not perfection, but achievable, pragmatic developer experience. And that doesn't suck.
Yeah. We'll try to show you a little bit of what that looks like. We'll use our own tooling as an example for that, and go from there. Yeah. I think that brings us to, who Harness is a little bit, maybe a little more about, who we are, my alternate title, maybe. So Harness, we're AI for software delivery. So kind of a fundamentally AI native platform. We've had AI at the heart of our CI/CD capabilities since like 2017 when we were doing AI native rollbacks. There's a lot more in it today, as you can imagine. We've got a kind of modular approach to the platform. So, it's not an all or nothing sort of thing. You can use this for just some pieces, but if you use this for everything, it's coherent. Love developers, but make sure that the governance story comes together real nicely. And we'll talk a lot today about kind of that tension between loving developers and how you deal with governance. So kind of embracing those sorts of things is what we'll do. I'll probably spend a lot of my time thinking about this today from more the business angle, and Dewan, you'll come at it from more of the developer angle. Is that right?
You got it right.
All right. Cool. All right. So let's get into it.
So here's our friend Dave the dev. So he's juggling deployments, CI pipelines, secrets. Although in our case, the lead developer didn't have access to the secret for the deployment pipeline. But anyways, he's also trying to manage flaky tests, permissions, compliance checks, and maybe just maybe some actual code. So this is the reality of a lot of engineers today. The promise of DevOps was autonomy, faster delivery, empowered teams. But in reality, it's often toil. Some toil is healthy, but it's a lot of toil. Ticket queues and a jungle of fragmented tools.
Yeah, and I think we have this promise of like, you build it, you own it, you should have autonomy over your tools. It should be relatively straightforward, and the dev teams have their own things. But instead, you have to kind of have access to 8 different tools, but you don't necessarily manage them all. Full control over them all. And so you're just hoping things don't fall apart Friday at 5 if you're taking that risk, because if it does, then you're in that world of hurt like our developer who did in that story that you were telling earlier. So I think that simplicity is a bit of an issue.
But then, Eric, how hard can it be, right? Like, I just onboard my developers, I build my code, and just release it.
Yeah, hit the button and off it goes.
Isn't that simple?
Yeah.
You just vibe code your way through it. That's just right. That's how simple it. You vibe op your way through it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and I think vibe coding, what we've seen is it's so easy to make new code now, right? It's on average, I think developers are generating 25, 30, 45% more code than they were before.
Mm.
And that's like the average developer, including the person who's working on a mainframe or something where probably the AI coding assistants aren't terribly useful.
And my AI coding assistant is so confident. Like when I ask my colleague, they're sometimes, even though they're a principal engineer, they're hesitant that this might not be right. But my coding assistant, the confidence, it is right.
Yeah. What we're not seeing necessarily is actually a lot more delivery of value. The latest research from Dora is showing like more code, not more delivery, not higher quality delivery. It's really kind of problematic. And I think that's because we've accelerated the front end, but not necessarily the middle or the back end. And so we've got some mismatch. And you do any sort of systems thinking here, and it's like, oh, we didn't actually deal with the bottlenecks, right? We go back to some classic gold rat, which is probably another webinar. We look at this like up front, right? I've got like wikis, I've got information in Confluence, I've got all this stuff for how I might get started, right? That's not necessarily available to my coding agents. I do have my coding agents in my IDE. They have access to my code repos, at least some of them. So they're my AI agents have some benefit for me. But then as we start going downstream, I'm starting to glue all this stuff together, right? I've got to do my build, and that's in one tool, right? And then I've got a bunch of security and testing tools, and often it's several. And those may be controlled by my developer teams. They may be controlled by the CISO, right? We often see like the security teams running these scans and then sending spreadsheets full of things to developers. That's just ugly, right? We want those in the pipeline. And yet another tool for where my artifacts live, right? Something like Artifactory. Then maybe we're doing some sort of resilience or performance testing. As we move towards release, now we're thinking more and more about our infrastructure, right? We got to do infrastructure as code. How is that managed? Are those the same pipelines also in the same CI tools, or are they different pipelines running our Terraform, right? If we don't have really great automated governance, are we using ServiceNow and doing a change advisory board and filing change tickets and all of that? I bet our developer at the bank was, right? Our deployment, is that in our CI tool, or are we doing new tools? Did we drop in Argo for that, right? And then how is that connected to all these other things? That's tricky. Are we scripting all of this? And once we put it out there, how do we know it actually worked, right? What's our monitoring look like? And then if it didn't work, do we have a rollback script or not, right? In our story earlier, it was more of a manual rollback story. Are we allowed to hit the rollback? How do we know when to? And then what does our governance look like? If all these things are scattered, right, I probably can't have a governance policy over it. Or if I do, it's written down. In that bank, it was probably written down in a 3-inch binder of like rules. Good luck following that, right? Good luck auditing it. That's not going to be fun, right? I do probably have some secret management tool. I hope I can integrate that secret management tool, the 20 things above, right? On average, I probably do purchase 12 things or implement 12 different things. If I want to get analytics out of that, oh, good grief, right? Like pulling that down, they all have different data models, right? They all have different metaphors, right? None of these things match up. Try to pull that down into a BI tool and try to get it to line up. Total nightmare. Good luck. And then, I probably don't want to spend all the money in the world, right? I want to go back to my infrastructure and things like that, et cetera, and manage my cloud cost and do all this stuff with some modicum of efficiency. So other than that, I think this is a pretty straightforward situation that's really easy to make efficient.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I totally understood everything I needed to understand just on this slide alone. Very,
Easy.
very, very streamlined.
Yeah. Just piece of cake. And for a new developer, like you come into an org, it's simple, and I'm sure, like in a larger company, like all the teams are using the same set of stuff, right?
So yeah, it's easy.
Yeah,
it's so the larger the company, the less red tape. I've learned, right?
Yeah,
so
easy. So yeah, I think we get some challenges here. And
so you're saying that developer dev experience is broken. You're saying that, Eric, but do you have any data to back it up?
Exactly, right. So we ran the surveys. Late last year, we published this data dev experience. 97% of developers are telling us they switch, they do context switching every day. I don't think you can like do a survey and get 97% of anything, right? Like, but
that's a pretty beefy number.
Yeah, that's crazy. And we got a little bit more detail too, right? So, we heard, almost 60% of people find that they're regularly blocked by AppSec. 2/3 are rolling back manually. Almost half complain that their testing is inefficient. And yeah, learning all those tools, like learning your code base, trying to figure it all out to get fully onboarded and efficient, like takes 3-4 months, right? 100 days. So, I mean, we get this sort of data when we ask hundreds of developers and their leaders what's going on. Dewan, like, what does this mean in real experience?
No, yeah, I totally agree, because first 4 or 5 years in tech, I worked as a backend Java developer, working for large enterprise, working projects for big banks, governments, and it's just not numbers. It actually relates to pain points. So the first part where you're saying my dev is blocked by AppSec. So I recall one backend developer was blocked from merging a PR due to flag vulnerability in transitive dependency. So they're not even using it. They're not aware that that dependency exists. So with no remediation or guidance or risk explanation, so they spend good 2 or 3 days chasing the approval just to get an exception. They didn't even know that existed. Now they're trying to get approval to get that updated. And that makes them hesitant to push critical changes afterward. The other thing I recall is about manual rollback. So during a live incident, dev had to do a manual rollback of deployment. So SSHing into a KDS cluster, identified an older image tag from the memory, and then restarting the service, all while customers were experiencing the downtime. And without automation, the rollback took nearly 30 minutes. Now, what do you think, Chris and Eric? Like, is 30 minutes acceptable in this day and age?
Well, no, like 30 seconds is not acceptable. I mean, that's seriously,
no,
especially you got customers hammering something.
Meanwhile, I'm sure AppSec wasn't thrilled you had permission to log into that box. So yeah, not ideal. Yeah, so I think we're in a world where, kind of, we know both from this kind of the stories and the data, right, that developer experience is pretty broken here.
Yeah, right? It could be better, substantially better.
Could be a lot better, right? Yeah. And a lot of people are paying the price here, business results and emotionally, and not being with their families. So let's get to the root of what's going on, other than that we have a lot of tools, right? Because a lot of this gets to some tensions between, what the developers need in order to get their jobs done, and then what like the departments of no need in order to keep the business safe. So Dewan, like, what do you need as a development team to get your job done?
All right, so I'll be the developer's advocate.
Okay.
Which is appropriate, yes.
Which is appropriate, and enthusiastic developer's advocate, and bring their perspective, okay? So let's start with changing my own pipelines. Now, if I wait for another team member to upload a pipeline YAML, that is like submitting a ticket to rename a variable. So let developers own their own delivery path. It shortens the feedback loop and unlocks innovation. So we talk about like rapid iteration. So features don't get better just by sitting in a branch. You build fast, you fail fast, you test, deploy. That means we as developers, we can ship and improve without context switching. Now, with fully automated coming to prod, now manual gates and handoffs introduce delay and risk. So with full automation, we as developer, we can trust the system to promote good code safely. So that's why we're saying like fully automated.
I got to stop you there though, because you're talking about having total control over your pipelines and going fast and like great. At the same time, last time we did an audit, half of the pipelines didn't have the security scans that were in the document that we passed out to everybody. And all your managers said that you had security scans in there, and it was my ass. Like they got chewed out when they weren't there. So now I got to have control over that because we can't follow the policies, right? And like, if we can't follow the policies, then how can we give control? Right?
And I totally understand it. The thing with control over the infrastructure is dev teams shouldn't have to beg for a port change or a config tweak. So when developers can self-serve infrastructure within guardrails, we can debug faster, we prototype sooner, and stay in the flow.
Yeah, but we always know how you provision infrastructure. It's like, give me the biggest box that's known to man, and so I don't have to ever go back and change anything. And then we have cost overruns, and it's a nightmare. So like, I can't just give you the keys to the castle. You'll make us go out of business.
Just this one time.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, I think we're play acting here, but like this is a microcosm, right, of what's going on, and I think both sides of this conversation have great intent, right? It's important not to go out of business. It's important not to have audit failures. It's important to actually run the security scans, right? But it's also important that when the application is down, that the person who's well situated to fix the pipeline, to repair it and get it back up, is empowered to do so.
Yeah.
And that's why, I think we want to really hit this idea that these trade-offs that we often think about that drive to these conflicts are typically false, right?
Or they
we need
can't
to be asking that question.
Yeah.
Right. How do we get both? Right.
Yeah, it's not an or, it's an and. So speed and security, standards and flexibility, quality and innovation.
Right. And I think this is, we often see people talking about, well, how do I balance this and that? Right. But when we look at all the literature, right, things like speed and quality are very complementary. The more frequently we release, then our releases are smaller and they're less risky inherently, right? So if we're able to build enough quality testing that gives us permission to release faster, and then each release becomes safer, and we get a flywheel effect where everything gets faster and safer together. And so these are the things we have learned through like real good academic work in the DevOps space, that we can have everything, right? So we need to bridge these trade-offs, right? And I think that's what we want to talk about for the next 5-10 minutes, and then we'll look at how some of this works. So, golden paths.
This is like a yellow brick road here, or
exactly.
Okay.
As a platform engineer, as someone who is kind of on that central team, whatever that is, I want to make it as easy for Dewan to do things the right way as possible, and I want to make it hard to do things the wrong way. If it is easy to do things the right way, he will.
Yeah, path of least resistance.
Yeah. So if to spin up the next project is go into a very simple dashboard and say, give me a new project, and everything is created, the pipelines, the repos, the monitoring, the infrastructure of it all just shows up and it's to our standards. And oh yeah, the security scans are there. and it uses the approved architectures and infrastructure and whatever, we're going to be in a much better place, right? So knock down the tree that's in the way of the dangerous path and pave the golden road. Anything you want to add to that, Dewan?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head that this is a golden path, and we're not forcing you to choose it. We're offering you the best option, and you prefer using it rather than paving your own path.
And then, like, once that's set up, right, we should actually think about how to maintain it, right?
Yeah, often forgotten. People want to like build new bridges, but no one wants to actually maintain old bridges. Have you seen that phenomena, Chris?
Oh, yeah. That makes me nervous every time I go over a bridge thinking, well, I'm just going to trust that the people who need to do what they do are doing what they need to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, I've got a way of creating new pipelines from a template, right? But very often, when I talk to people and they say, oh, yeah, we got templates. What they mean is I've got an example project and people copy and paste from that. All right, great. Like, what happens when you change your example? Do all the things you copy and pasted from also get updated? No, I did, copy and paste. It's not a copy by reference. It's a copy by value. Right. And, you want some sort of copy by reference sort of thing to tap into my, computer science 201 class.
Java flashback happening right here.
Right. Like that's what we want for our templates for our pipelines. That means that I've got some reasonable way of upgrading them centrally and everybody gets it. So if we change the tool, right, this is the way I always think about it. Like if we change our testing tool or security scanning tool or whatever, how much of a nightmare is it going to be to go to all of my projects and update them, right? That's the thought exercise I want everyone to go through for do I actually have templates or not? So if the answer is it's easy, then you're good. If the answer is it's going to be hard, then you don't have templates.
Is that somewhat, in a way, kind of like tech debt, if not directly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pipeline sprawl.
Okay.
Yeah, pipeline sprawl is tech debt. Yep. We want our kind of fundamental automation to be intelligent, right? The less scripting I have to do, the better, right? Every script I have is tech debt too, right? The person who wrote that script leaves, and then it's just this wall of spaghetti for the next person. And it's often also copy and pasted and tweaked, and it's, a mess. So how do we actually have rollbacks, right, that actually work? I often ask, like, how easy is it to dig into the logs, right? Can you actually understand quickly what went wrong? I think in the scenario you were talking about earlier, the answer was not very quickly. So do we have the pieces and parts to build on that will actually allow us to automate in an easy way without accumulating a ton of technical debt ourselves? Dewan, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think automation is a very generic word. People mean automation mostly as a glued shell scripts. And then by integration, it's also, I have an API called somewhere. So that doesn't help, at least not in this time. So our apps are getting more complex. We're working with razor thin timeline on how much the SLA is. So the intelligence has to be real intelligence. The analysis of the failure has to be in almost real time, and a pure intelligent platform is needed.
Yeah, I think this is where, there is this arms race where we're generating so much more code with AI that we're increasingly needing AI downstream, right? Mm. Can I generate my tests as quickly as I can generate my code? If my build fails, can I analyze my logs, not by reading them myself, but hey, an LLM should be able to read my logs as easily as it reads my code and explains the build failure to me, right? All the way through. Can the LLM generate my pipeline for me? Right? Should be able to. It's just code. Right? So all of these things, we should have this capability too, but a lot of the focus in the market has been upfront. And so it's how do we do all of the things downstream at that pace so that we can actually deliver at that, get that lift, right? If we're generating 25% more code, how do we generate 25% more delivery, 25% more value?
Right. Yeah.
Good old shift left. Could spend, I have whole webinars on shift left security and how this has turned into just a nightmare for a lot of developers. But I think we want to bring the information to the developers, but not like a whole bunch of work. So how do we say, okay, here's your vulnerabilities. These are the most important new ones. Here's how to fix them. Off you go, right? Make it as easy as possible for the developers to deal with security things rather than burdening them and saying, all right, you guys go deal with security now. Right? As playing my role of central governance guy, I just want things to be secure. I want the scans to happen and be acted on. But realistically, if I just give you a spreadsheet of 1,000 things to want, are you going to deal with that well?
Can't my AI code assistant again come to rescue me?
Yeah, maybe, but only if I give it all the right information, right? Probably not if I feed it a spreadsheet. So yeah, I think this is a great opportunity, right, for AI, right? That's a place where we do some stuff, right? We find the thing, you say, oh, here's the code, here's the CVE, you put the two things together and it should be able to provide a suggestion. And that's where the market is now. And then finally, let's talk about policies code, right? As much as I love 3-ring binders full of written policies, let's automate this stuff, right? Let's have that kind of digital guardrail. So whatever our rules are, I want to find a way of, as the central governance guy, I want to express that as code so that I can let Dewan own his own pipelines. And if he goes and tries to delete the security scan, my policy says no.
Yeah.
But if he fixes his pipeline, cool.
Yeah, you got to watch Dewan. So he always trying to delete those security scans. I've got my eye on him.
Again, right? But then it's safe, right? Then he can do most anything, but I know that for my handful of policies that I know need to be true, it's safe.
Which covers you, which keeps you safe.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in my defense, I do it out of enthusiasm because my title doesn't have that part. So pardon me.
Yeah. You want to walk us through some of this code enthusiastically?
Yeah, of course. So I think what Eric mentioned, that we need to make it as easy as possible for doing the right things and as difficult as possible to do the wrong things. So me as a developer, I might not know that my deployment stage needs an approval step. And without the policy, I'd create a pipeline and get yelled at, or even my sysadmin would create a pipeline and get yelled at. But this open policy agent, this in Rego, this tells that in my pipeline, if the stage, that's line number 7, is type of deployment, and it doesn't have an approval step, then you're going to get an error. So this makes it super easy that no approval, no deployment.
Yeah. Oh, and look, the AI will help me create this policy, so I don't have to know how to write this code either.
Yes.
Important. All right. It's important that I can vibe code everything. Cool. Yeah. And then ideally, as much fun as it was to look at all those red boxes and those columns up at the start, if instead of having 37 different tools, I could have something more coherent with it all glued together, that would be better. Realistically, you do have things off on islands. You always want to have one or two things that are not part of your integrated platform. That's totally cool. But the more things you have together that you don't have to integrate yourself and maintain those integrations, the better, right? So I think those are the principles as we were talking about it for good DevX that we wanted to talk about. And DevOps with good DevX, like, it's not just like some hippie stuff because we like developers, which we do, but it's how you go fast and safe. So with that, Dwan, how about I throw it over to you? You show us some examples of what this looks like in the real world for 10 minutes or so, and we'll move towards Q&A.
Sounds good.
Yeah, this is as you're kind of explaining the story and we're working through the deck, even in the back of my head, I can't imagine having an organization that would not have solved these problems, but there are more out there that do than otherwise, which is a great reason to do the webinar.
Yeah. So this is day one. Again, I got demoted from lead developer advocate to like the junior developer. And then this is my day one. I joined a company and I'm just trying to figure things out. So this is Harness internal developer portal that's built on the popular Backstage project. And I have all my apps in the catalog I can take a look at. But I also have workflows. So these are based on template. And let's say I need to create a Java app and then onboard that to Harness. Remember, I'm new to Harness, so I don't know the things about Harness entity and concepts and projects and so on. But I see that I can create, sure, I'll give it a project name. So I'll do temp proj C, and then temp app C. So let's see. With that, I'll try to create the Java app and onboard that to Harness. Now I'm given some options to choose a cloud provider for deployment. I can choose between GCP, AWS, Azure, OpenShift. And then for the underlying infra, I can choose KDIS, VMs, and so on.
And that's set up by your platform team?
Yeah, it's all set up. It's all set up. So I don't have to configure. I don't have to know it. I can choose. And then also the persistence layer, like MySQL, PostgreSQL, MongoDB, and then I choose the ownership. Like the caching system. So let's say I can choose none or Redis, and then I can choose the ownership. So who would be the owner of this resource? So for simplicity, I'll choose all account owners. But then you can go fine-grained based on RBAC, like who exactly would own this resource. And then I can click on review. And if everything looks good, I can click on create. And now what this is doing is creating a Git repository, creating a project for you, and creating Harness-related entities like services. And if I click on show logs, it'll actually show me the steps. So it'll also show me the pipeline that got kicked. And now I can see that's creating the application. And then it's a Terraform apply. So once this all happens, I'll get an email that looks something like this. So you've been added to the project, and then you can go and get started. So I'll let that run. And then I want to show you about catalog. So let's say this is the app I'm concerned with. So I can see everything in a single pane of glass. I can see my source code. I can view my docs. I can see all the upstream and downstream services, as well as how my team is performing with the service maturity, like the DevOps security standards. I can also see the underlying subcomponents for my for my app. But then I can see my build, I can see my deploy, what failed, all of these under the same section. And then I can see cloud costs broken down for this application and the underlying infrastructure. So this is what Eric meant, that we don't have to choose this or that. So this enables developers as well as platform teams to set up guardrail and visibility to allow you to go fast, but within certain standards where you can build things, you can break things, do automatic rollback, and show you if you're going to scale, how much it'll cost, and where are the ways to save money. Anything you want to add here, Eric?
No, I'm just happy that you guys are keeping an eye on your costs.
That is, cost is important. So I wanted to show you the actual end-to-end pipeline and how that looks like. So this pipeline shows you the whole end-to-end cycle from building all the way up to the deployment. And here I can see that my builds are running, but if I see one of the execution, so let's say if I see, so some of the executions that are failed, that are intentional fail, because we want to show that our continuous verification that catches why your application deployment failed. So for example, this one shows that 9 out of 9 metrics were violated when you're trying to deploy this app. And if I click on view details, it shows me a detailed breakdown on what metrics did I set and what got violated.
So this is my connection from Datadog into my deployments and stitching the two together.
Yes, precisely. And then if I look at my build stage, so let's say I'm a developer, I'm more focused on the build. Within the build, we have the cache restore. So this is cache intelligence. Again, as a developer, you don't need to know about the underlying cache storage mechanism, how the cache is being restored. All you care is with this, harness intelligence is saving you 8 minutes and 13 seconds. And then if I dig in deeper with test intelligence, again, rather than running all the tests, so if I click on the tests tab, you'll see I have roughly 10,000 unit tests here. But harness intelligence and the test intelligence is smart enough to know that which code got changed. So that's why it didn't run all the tests. It ran only a fraction of those tests. So roughly 1,500 tests ran, and then that shows you a time save of 6 minutes and 2 seconds. One other thing I want to show is the security scans. So rather than multiple fragmented security scan tools, it shows you one combined view with all the critical and different levels of vulnerability. So if I see my 4 critical vulnerability, and then I can see that these are the details, but Harness AI doesn't stop there. It also goes deep into showing that this is the remediation you can take and the example code. So some of the challenges of the tools are okay. Don't get me wrong. You can have 5 different tools doing these things. But as an architect, or let's say as a CTO, are you giving your developers access to all the tools that are integrated this natively? So I did mention about security scan, right? So Chris mentioned that I go and break things. He's right. So what I was going to do is I was going to go to the Pipeline Studio and go to Dev Cluster. So this is where the actual cluster is being set. And then this step, Chris, like this was bugging me because this was always failing. So no one's looking, right? It's not like a live webinar.
I'm not.
I knew it. I knew it.
It's not like we're in a live webinar. So I'm going to delete, and then I'm going to save it. And of course, I'm just going to commit to main.
Yeah. What could go wrong?
What could go? Oops. What's going on? So I can see that there are policies in place, open policy agent, that these are required in pipeline. So I guess I can just go ahead and delete it.
I will.
Yeah, so that's what's stopping me. But then again, yeah, I can discard, and then everything is good.
Back to normal.
Back to normal.
Wow. But yeah, as you said, like these tools, you could do all these things independent of one another, but not having them unified. Well, it sounds to me like nightmares waiting to happen.
Yeah,
if,
yeah, precisely.
if they haven't happened already, right?
if they haven't happened already. And one other thing I wanted to show you is here, based on the infrastructure as code management part, it shows you the estimated cost change. So for example, the change you're making, it shows that you have an 1120% jump in your cost. And that's the reason is you're adding more node or more beefy nodes to your node pool. So that's how granular these details could be. So you can break down to specific infrastructure and deployment clusters and see where you're intending to make these changes and the cost implication. Because at the end of the day, we can't forget that these services will actually accumulate costs.
Yeah. And if I embrace my inner developer for a second, I'll throw out that in this sort of thing, we'll take the same information and we'll comment on it back in a pull request. So if you want to do your approvals in a GitOps sort of flow, we'll just put it in the pull request. So you're not just looking at the Terraform code that changed. You're looking at the Terraform code that changed next to reasonable information that says the primary nodes are changing in such a way that it's going to have a cost change that takes it from $159 a month to $3,000 a month. Is that what you want to approve?
Yeah.
So now the implication is there. And I think when we talk about a developer experience, making sure that if we're going to ask developers to approve things, let's make it fair. Let's tell them the implications of that approval, right? Not just give them.
Stop sharing the screen and pass it back to you, Eric, if it's okay.
Yeah, we should. So yeah, I think some of the things we showed was policy as code. We didn't show AI reading logs, but that's in there. Showed some fast builds. We showed canary deployments with automatic rollbacks. Pipelines as code with the visual editor. Some price governance there. So yeah, certainly not done. We've got some capabilities now for the AI that creates and improves pipelines. That's getting updated like most weeks right about now. That's pretty cool stuff. And we're working constantly to make the underlying code and the YAML and all that experience as easy as possible. Just improving that developer experience is always an ongoing mission. But with that, let's move on towards Q&A. Make sure we give people a chance to tell us what they want to know.
And if anybody has questions, if you're watching live, feel free to ask. I mean, I do have a couple of questions, and I know some of the questions I would have had were likely covered in what you just shared. But how do you convince managers to care about the developer experience? I mean, I can see it as I'm not nearly as technical. I may be enthusiastic, but not the same league. I could see the value at a distance, like specifically like, oh, well, this is the code change and this is the impact it's going to make, dollar-wise. It's going to save us money or it's going to cost us more. How can the managers, maybe technical or non-technical, be convinced to care if they don't?
Yeah, I think there are some things where, there are flow issues, like we had downtime, right, in our very first example. And I wouldn't talk about that as developer experience. I'd talk about that as a system issue that's leading to downtime, and let's address the downtime, right? That it was bad for our developers. Yes, that too. But let's focus on the harsh business realities. more broadly, developer experience, there's tons of data that good developer experience is good for productivity, which delivers better innovation and improves retention, which matters more in some economies than others. But the high business effectiveness and innovation always matters. There's plenty of studies that developer effectiveness and developer experience are tightly linked. I would talk about the effectiveness.
Totally. And if I could add to that we as developers, we need to tie to the things that our managers already care about. So velocity, retention, reliability. So for example, if your developers are averaging 2 PRs per week, and after the developer experience overhaul, you have a faster CI, you have pre-provisioned dev environments, you have better documentation, and then you're seeing, let's say, 5 PRs per week. And if you can put all of that in a nice dashboard and with a business case, that will get leadership attention.
Eric, you're on it. You're paying attention to chat. Michael Howard had asked if Harness AI could be licensed and deployed, but you answered in chat. I just want to make sure you have a chance to say it in video too.
Yeah, so vast majority of our customers consume Harness SaaS, but yes, we do offer it on-prem as a self-managed platform.
So, there are also all sorts of sizes of development teams out there and companies and whatnot. How can smaller dev teams balance speed and security? You're talking how can the smaller teams do it?
Yeah, and it's the same thing. You're always going to want to get both. But yeah, let's make sure that our security scans, whichever ones you decide to adopt, are baked right into our pipelines, and then we get really clear feedback to our developers. I think if you can show them which security issues are new, then that's important, right? Because almost every team I've worked with, when you start running security scanning tools against them, you get really long lists, right? And so you want to start saying, okay, we know that's there, and we'll work on those. But I want to make sure that I don't introduce any new high priority things, right? Nothing should get worse, and we'll try to get better. So I think that sort of a mindset works, is let's make sure we know what's new, and let's always have clear prioritization. So sort things. And then the more transparency and the faster you can get that feedback, the better. Some training and best practices and stuff like that's always good too. But yeah, make it easy. Anything you want to add to one?
Yeah, I'd say for smaller dev teams, like speed is your edge. Don't lose that. But don't treat security as something to bolt on later. So for smaller teams, I always recommend focusing on the default behavior instead of manual gates. So let's say you're using base images that are pre-scanned. You're using like lint or scan dependencies on merge, not commit. You're using short-lived tokens and secrets, and not have like long-lived secrets, or integrate a couple of high signal, like low noise tools early. So for example, what the security scanning tools that Eric mentioned. So I think if you think of it more like a checklist that's baked into your dev flow, then you can have these practices regardless of your team size.
What about using existing tools with Harness? Is that possible?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think you were deleting a whiz scan, right? It'd be an existing tool that was being integrated in.
Okay.
Yeah. So for example, if you think of Datadog, right? So you can connect Datadog, your account, to Harness as a monitoring and logging provider. So once connected, Harness can use your Datadog dashboards to check, do health checks in the pipeline, verification for post deployment. So instead of replacing your observability stack, Harness leverages it to make deployment safer and smarter. But this is not only at a platform level. So Datadog integration is available directly on product level as well. So for example, Harness IDP plugin, or within the verification provider for Harness CV. So there is like native integration for external tools.
Yeah, I think on the security tools, 30 or 40 of them are integrated with. And that doesn't just mean like we kick off the scan, but we get the data and it gets into that really pretty view. And so we normalize the priorities and all of that.
And speaking of priority, how can people get started with Harness? How easy? How fast?
Pull out your phone and scan the QR code, and you can just sign up and get going. We are happy to help people. So if you don't want to just explore it yourself, and like it is a big platform, right? So we're happy to do demos and all of those sorts of things. So if you're more like me, like you probably actually do like talking to salespeople, and so you probably want to go find the contact us page and go talk to a salesperson and get a demo and all of that. If you're more like Dewan, you probably want to scan the QR code and just go play. So,
and we'll meet you where you are, whether you're using Terraform to spin up your harness resources, whether you're using CLI, whether you're using UI, whether you're using Kubernetes, we'll meet where you are.
Yeah.
Solid. No, Dewan, Eric, thank you for spending the time. I know I learned a lot. And thank you for the insights that I'm sure will be very helpful to people who have teams that need this tool to make the entire company run better, more efficiently.
All right.
So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Chris. And hopefully I was enthusiastic enough.
You were. I think the enthusiasm we were brimming with it.
Hey, look, I'd love it if you used our tool, but I mean, the main thing is like follow these principles. Like, I hope you learned something today, and you can clean things up a little bit, because we are like 15 years into DevOps at this point, and we can do a lot better than our poor guy on Friday night. Like we should be better than most teams are these days. We know how to do better.
I swear I've seen it over and over. Don't push to production on Friday. Like I've seen it.
You know what? We should be so good at this point that you should be able to push to production on a Friday while you are commuting.
Wow.
This should be non-worrying.
That's bold. But if that's the experience that you've built, so it sounds like a solid step forward, certainly from where most teams might be.
And we couldn't touch on all the topics in 60 minutes.
Yeah.
I put a link in the chat, so you can join Harness Community Slack. You can find both Eric and I on LinkedIn. Please feel free to connect, and we'd love to continue the conversation. Again, we're focusing on the technology that solves real DevOps developer experience pain points. So please reach out.
Well, there's a person in chat. It just said, Christopher said, looks very interesting. Thanks. And I took the words right out of my mouth. Thank you very much. And everybody, thanks for tuning in. If you were listening live, you want to recap, this will be available on demand. If you're watching on demand, well, then go check out Harness. Thanks again, Eric, Dewan. It was wonderful to meet you.
Pleasure.